Hello and welcome to Retro Reviews, my channel where I review my favorite retro video games of all time, as well as some modern releases I have recently finished. And welcome to Smash Saturday, where I talk about all things Smash related until we get a new Smash game, whether that be Smash 6 or Smash Ultimate Deluxe. And today I want to talk about a huge tournament that just happened for Smash Ultimate and Smash Melee, Genesis X2. If you're unaware of the competitive scene of Smash Brothers, this is one of the biggest tournaments of the entire year for Smash Brothers. It started off pretty humbly with the Smash Melee, and it's grown into something really monumental, with competitors from all over the world coming to compete at this premier tournament. And we had some crazy upsets, a lot of insane things happen, a couple of no-shows from some of the top players for both games, and I wanted to go over some of the upsets and my overall takeaway from this big tournament. So I'll be talking about Melee first, and then we'll get on to Ultimate. Ultimate is a game I follow more, but I do have some interest in Melee as well. It's definitely grown over the years. I do like watching it as as a spectator, not as a competitor. I don't play Melee competitively, I never have, but it's really fun to watch, and I've really enjoyed that over the years. So with Melee, we had lots of really big upsets in the top 64. But one thing that really kind of made a lot of these things possible is one of the top players, Zain, the #1 in the world who plays Marth, was not in attendance at this tournament. And MKLeo wasn't for Smash Ultimate either. Both of them seeded very highly, Zain being, probably the #1 seed. I can't remember if he was or if he was #2, something like that. But he's the best player in the world right now. MKLeo has won more Genesis titles than any other person in Smash Brothers history, let alone Smash Ultimate. So him not being there was also really weird. I can't remember why both of them weren't able to be in attendance, but it did throw things, a wrench into things for sure. So top 64 for both games looked pretty weird. For Smash Melee, top 64 had a bunch of crazy upsets. I'm going to be looking up here. Hopefully I'll have some footage to show you so you don't see me looking, but if you see me looking up, it's because I've got my notes up above me, so I can make sure I go through all the crazy things that happened here. So first and foremost, we had Amsa, the best Yoshi in the world, who got upset in top 64 by Laud, a very prominent Peach player. He's also a doctor. He became a medical doctor fairly recently, within the last couple of years, but he still competes here and there. It's really remarkable how well he does, but he beat Amsa 3-0, and then Amsa fell to Plup in the loser side. Plup, a very, very good player who got upset, I can't remember, by Wizrobe, and then lost to Axe in loser side to exit the tournament before top 8. So Plup and Amsa in the loser side of top 64 was pretty fantastic to see. Not like fantastic because I don't like those players, that's not what I'm saying, but it's like a crazy thing to see these players fall so early on. Both of them projected to make top 8, I think, at least. I'm not sure if they were seeded out of top 8 or not, actually, now that I think about it, but they were very likely to make top 8. Both incredible players. Plup is one that is like a perennial top 10 player in the world, but he doesn't attend enough tournaments to ever be ranked, so he just pops up and then destroys people, and it's crazy. And then Amsa is the best Yoshi in the world. He's won several super majors. He was the first person to do it with Yoshi, and the only person so far, but he has just made Yoshi look absolutely broken. To see both of them fall well before top 8 was very surprising. Another big upset was Cody Schwab losing to Ara, a Peach player that I wasn't actually aware of. Lost 3-0 to that player. Cody is the #2 in the world and was #1 last season before Zain reclaimed this title. So seeing Cody fall, I think in the first round of top 64, was pretty crazy. He ultimately did make it to top 8, and then lost to Mango in top 8 in a game 5, but seeing him lose so early on was kind of crazy. Not as big of an upset factor since he did make it into top 8, but it is crazy to see the #2 in the world and the #1 at the tournament for sure, after Zain didn't show up, fall that early on. And then we had Jmook, the best Sheik player in the world, the only solo Sheik to ever win a super major, fall to Junebug, a Donkey Kong player who has been rising through the ranks lately, very rightly as well, because he's making Donkey Kong look actually viable, and like he could actually win a super major, which is absolutely insane to think about. Lost to him early on, and then lost to Josh Man, a Fox player, in the loser side. I believe it was a 3-0 there. So he didn't make top 8 and was absolutely one of the favorites to do so. And then we had Aklo, another person who's looking like a top 10 player in the world for sure as of late. He has beaten Zain with Link, especially one of the only people that counterpicks Zain with Link, and he's been really showing off, beating some of the top players in the world. Again, like making top cut in a spectacular fashion, winning some tournaments. He looks like a top 10 player in the world. He didn't make top 8 either, losing to Triff, the Peach player that made it to Grand Finals, and to Moki as well, who lost to Cody in top 8, I believe, if I'm not mistaken there. So we had lots of upsets with Smash Melee. That was just before top 8. Top 8 was pretty spectacular, though. We had Hungrybox, who has not won a Super Major in several years, seen as one of the best Melee players of all time. He was several years in a row the number 1. Very spectacular player. My personal favorite Melee player. I don't typically like the zoning, slow characters, but Jigglypuff is just really fun to watch in Melee. I really like what the character does, especially with everybody feeling pretty fast and feeling like Fox and Falco kind of dominate in a lot of scenarios, or getting outspaced by characters like Marth. It's really cool to see a character like Jigglypuff succeed in so many places where you'd feel like she shouldn't be able to. Hungrybox loses to Wizrobe, a Captain Falcon player, the best Captain Falcon player in the world, in winner's side, drops down to loser's side, has to fight another Captain Falcon, Salt, that he defeats, and then steadily goes through the losers bracket, beats Mango next, who beats Cody Schwab. I think Mango is maybe a slight better matchup for Hungrybox specifically than Cody. He has been beating both of them recently, but he has a kind of back and forth with Cody that's a little bit more tumultuous. With Mango, he is typically beating him as of late, and I think that was a better favorable thing. Ends up beating Mango and actually goes all the way to losers finals, where he goes up against Wizrobe again, who lost to Triff in winners finals. Triff is a Peach player. It was insane to see a solo Peach player make it all the way to Grands and a chance to win Genesis here. Triff, like, being the first solo Peach to do so since Armada, it was a crazy storyline to see that happen. And part of that was, of course, Zane not making the tournament, but also Triff just popping off and beating so many fantastic players, including Wizrobe. I believe it was a 3-0 against Wizrobe in winners finals. Hungrybox goes up against Wizzy in losers finals, and it's a spectacular set. It's absolutely back and forth. It's really crazy. Hungrybox looks like he's on the back foot a lot of the set, but starts pulling off a crazy comeback and ultimately gets lucky. I think he misses some kind of kill confirm, if I'm not mistaken, in game 5, but then Wizzy SDs, and then it's a really tense back and forth, and Hungrybox gets a tech read on the platform, a reaction tech chase, and gets a rest on him and ends the game just barely. He goes to pop off, realizes it hasn't quite died yet, and then finally Wizrobe dies, and he celebrates like nobody's business, goes into grand finals, and then goes on to 3-2 Triff in the first set of Grands. Since he's coming from loser's side, he had to win 2 sets. He wins that first set. The game 5 wasn't super close, but the set was very back and forth, really long, very taxing. He's coming from loser's side, so he's had to play more sets, but he's able to secure it. And then Grands, the final game, I believe it was game 4, was just Hungrybox dominating the entire time. It looked like a 4-stock at one point, and he just let it all out. The emotion was crazy. It was so cool to see him win another super major, because it's been such a long time. And it was awesome for me, because again, Hungrybox is my favorite player in Melee, so it was great to see him return to the heights that he had previously and do it just in spectacular fashion. So congratulations to Hungrybox. That was really fun to see. Now let's move on to the ultimate side of things. This is kind of where I really enjoy Smash Brothers. I really love Ultimate. Had some crazy things happen. Tweak is my favorite player. Raru is a close second because he plays Luigi. He's the best Luigi in the world. I play Luigi. I've always played Luigi in Smash Brothers, no matter what the game is. And to see them get seeded into each other was a heartbreaker for me. I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to watch Tweak or Raru get knocked into the loser's side pretty early on before top 8. And it didn't actually go that way. So I'm going to talk about some of the upsets, because the upsets in Ultimate were actually crazier here. So let's talk about some of the less crazy ones. So Cola, the best Roy player in the world, he is the only person, I believe, in top 64 and top 8 to take Hurt, the best Snake player in the world, to a game 5. It was a very close set. He ended up losing there, and then went down to loser side and lost to Zomba, the best Rob player in the world, who made a spectacular run after losing early on as well. Cola was one that is kind of a wild card. He sometimes just pops off hard. He's a really scary player once you let him have momentum. To see him fall to Hurt, but had a chance to make top 8 winner side, was pretty cool, and the only person to take Hurt to game game 5 as well. We also had Gluttony, who had a really crazy run. He had to beat a Steve player, a really fantastic Steve player, and then he had to play Mia, one of the best players in the entire world, I believe number 2 this last season, a Game & Watch, and Steve Co-Main, and he just absolutely dominated the first couple games, was starting to get reverse 3-0'd, and then the last game just pulled it out and absolutely destroyed. But then he lost to Luigi, who was another top Luigi player, the best one in the UK, and one of my favorite players as well, again, because he plays Luigi, but he also just has a style about him. I really like what he does. Lost 3-0 to Luigi, which was a huge upset. Luigi beat Light previously, the best Fox player in the world. Luigi heavily wins that matchup. It is a very hard one, and someone as talented as Luigi, he just kind of took Light to the cleaners. He lost one game that he absolutely could have won, and he just dominated the other 3 games that he won. It was pretty crazy. So he destroyed Gluto 3-0. They've played quite a bit. Gluto usually comes out on top, but that is a hard matchup for Wario. He just has to really work hard to win there, and Luigi was just playing hot. So Gluto lost to Luigi right before top 8, and then ultimately lost to Tweak in loser's side. I'll talk about that in just a little bit because this is a crazy thing. Gluto typically comes after Tweak. He typically wins. It's a hard matchup for Diddy, but he lost 3-0 to Tweak in loser's side and did not ultimately make top 8. Another one that was kind of crazy was Shiny Mark, the best Pikachu player in the world. He wasn't executing the best his entire bracket playthrough. That's a hard thing with Pikachu. Pikachu is really broken, but really hard to keep your execution up high all the time. And if you don't keep your execution up, you can just lose games or lose sets because of the endurance and because you're not connecting everything that you need to. It's a very hard character to be very successful with, but if you're as good as Shiny Mark is, typically, you can make runs go crazy. You can beat any character in the game. But he lost to Zomba in a game 5 set, and then ultimately lost to Tweak 3-0, and I think he beat him last time, and maybe, if I'm not mistaken, the time before that as well. But getting 3-0'd by Tweak, dropping combos, dropping extensions, dropping edge guards and everything, he just wasn't there in the loser's side. On his winner's side, I think he dropped a couple confirms as well. So that was another really surprising one to not make top 8. And then also Beast Mode Paul, who actually upset Tweak. He beat Raru first. He had the upset there. Raru was projected to play Tweak after Beast Mode Paul, but Paul busted out the hero. And then the Sephiroth, Raru had the lead in game 5. He was really cooking and then just started getting railroaded by Sephiroth. That's a really hard matchup for Luigi. I figured Raru had some experience since he's fought Ken before, but he just started getting, he lost his momentum. He lost the lead. As soon as he started getting hit, I knew it was over. He started doing down B. You never do that against Sephiroth in disadvantage because he's got the disjoints. He doesn't have a lot of true combos, so you can't really catch him in anything. And he just ultimately lost that. And Hero is a ridiculously hard matchup for Diddy Kong, so he actually beat Tweak and then took T, the best Pac-Man, and I don't know if he's the best Kazuya player in the world since Riddles, but Riddles doesn't really compete as much anymore in Smash. He plays Pac-Man, definitely the best Pac-Man, and Kazuya as a co-main. He ended up beating Beast Mode Paul in a game 5, barely Beast Mode Paul not making it to top 8 because he ended up losing to Mia and right before top 8. So Beast Mode Paul making a crazy run. If he had beaten T, he could have played Hurt in the winner's side of top 8, but ultimately fell just outside of that top 8. And I believe that's it for the bigger, the smaller upsets. Now let's talk about the 4 players. There are 4 players in the top 10 that got eliminated at 17th place at this tournament. This is what I really was excited to talk about. Some of the biggest shakeups in the tournament. First and foremost was Raru, my boy, the best Luigi player in the world, losing to Beast Mode Paul, like I said before, and then losing to Ken, a Sonic and Sephiroth player from Japan that they've played before. He has beaten him before. He went all Sonic this time, lost 3-0, and got eliminated at 17th. Very bad showing for Raru here. He was projected to go much further. It was kind of surprising to see, but not as surprising as Sonic's, the number 5 player in the entire world, number 3 the season before, easily the best Sonic player in the world, who ended up losing 2 sets to Cola, which is a hard matchup for Sonic. I will admit Roy is a hard one, especially when Cola's piloting him. But he ends up losing to Cola and then to Umeki, who is a Daisy player from Japan, a TO extraordinaire out there, but just a really crazy player. There was some drama there because Umeki paused after getting a kill hit on Sonic or his controller disconnected, something about that, and ended up getting the game win over Sonics, even though it kind of looked like it should have been like you lose the stock. But since he hit him and he was in the kill animation, there was no chance to DI. He was already dead. They ended up awarding the game to him. A little bit of drama there, but he ended up winning 3-1 over Sonics, eliminating him at 17th place as well, which is a crazy thing. Sonics was projected to make top 8, probably grand finals even. Most people would have had that on their bingo card, but 17th place, not on most people's, not on mine especially. Light was another one who ended up losing to Luigi, like I said previously. Luigi just dominates Fox, and Light was not prepared that day. He was not ready to fight any Luigi players, and he got seeded into one of the best in the world, and Luigi was playing really, really good. So he destroyed him, went to loser's side, and then lost to Lima after beating Siski, one of the best Samus players in the world. Goes on to fight Lima and loses, I believe it was a 3-0, so getting eliminated at 17th. Light is the number 4 player in the world. But even crazier than that is the number 1, Spargo, losing in winner's side to TG Toraguri, the best banjo player in the world, in a crazy Game 5 scenario. I believe TG went up 2-0. He started getting some crazy momentum get thrown back his way. In Game 5, he absolutely dominated, looking like he was going to 3-stock, getting the 2-stock, beating the best player in the world, sending him to loser's side, where Spargo ultimately lost to Zomba. Made a crazy run all the way to 3rd place after beating Spargo and several other people in the loser side. Genesis, like I said before, is one of the biggest tournaments in Smash history. There was so much good talent, so being in the loser side early on in top 64 was pretty much a death sentence. But Zomba and Tweak actually made some incredible runs all the way to top 8 from losing pretty early on to some of their adversaries. Tweak actually had to beat, he lost to Beast Mode Paul. He had to beat a Rosa player named Mr. Popo, and Rosa Diddy is a very hard matchup. He went Sephiroth first, lost 2 games in a row, switched to Diddy, and reverse 3-0'd in spectacular fashion. Every game except the last game was very, very close. He almost lost a couple times, pulled it out, and then secured the Game 5 with a pretty dominant fashion, and then beat Shiny Mark 3-0, one that he's lost to before, I believe the last time they played, and then beat Gluttony 3-0, who he typically loses to. He's won a few times with Diddy Kong. Back in the early days of Ultimate, he would beat him with Wario. They'd do the Ditto and he would win, or he'd beat him with Pokemon Trainer, but he has been getting kind of railroaded by Gluto at the last few tournaments, but he ends up beating him 3-0 to make top 8 before he fell to Shuton, an Olimar and Aegis player. Played Olimar pretty much this entire tournament, 3-0, and ending his run at 7th place, which is awesome for him because he typically underperforms at Genesis based on his seed. He has he's been a lot of work. I believe this is 3 years in a row that he's made top 8, which is fantastic. Before that, I don't think he'd ever made top 8. It's really cool to see, especially winning so many hard matchups. If he had been seeded into Raru, it would have been a much more even matchup. Luigi and Diddy Kong is a volatile, even matchup. I think that it can go either way pretty easily. But against Hero, that's a really tough matchup. And then immediately into Rosalina and Luma, into Pikachu, into Wario is crazy to win all of those sets in a row. So I have to applaud my boy Tweak. Hurt made a crazy run. He destroyed T. Then he ended up destroying Akala 3-0, the best Steve player in the world, the number 3 in the world, and who was number 1 several years, for like a whole year and a half before that. And then beat him in Grand Finals 3-0 as well, after Akala beat Zomba, who made it all the way to 3rd place in loser's side. So this tournament was crazy. I think top 8 was far less interesting than top 64 for this one, just because I expected Hurt to do very well. Once I saw him in top 8 winner's side, I expected him to win the tournament. Snake is pretty broken, especially in Hurt's hands. Hurt is absolutely insane as a player, and he really knows how to exploit Steve's weaknesses and pretty much anybody else in the cast. He, like I said before, Cola was the only one to take him to Game 5 before that point, and he just kind of dominated after that. And to see him win the tournament was huge. I really like Hurt as a player. I think Snake's a crazy cool character, and he just really stuck it to everybody. He showed him that he was the dominant threat there, and he ended up taking home the gold, sending Akala to 2nd place, Zomba getting 3rd, and everyone else following after that. It was a really fantastic tournament. I had a lot of fun watching it. If you didn't get to watch it, I would highly recommend watching some sets. If you're not a spectator of competitive Smash, go check it out. It might be worth your time. It's really fun to watch, even if you're not a competitor yourself, but it might inspire you to jump on Elite Smash and get absolutely destroyed over and over again until you start learning how to play the game, which is what I do all the time. I get destroyed or I absolutely dominate, and Elite Smash is very volatile that way. Used to be a competitor, now I just kind of play online for fun. I really like it, so if you haven't checked it out before, I highly recommend it. Genesis was one of the tournaments to watch. Go check out a few of the sets I talked about or some of the other ones. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.